All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Story of a Colorful World Author Conversations. I am your host, Kanika Mobley, and we are here with author Jenny Delacruz. So great to have you here, Jenny.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here, Kanika. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And so before we get started talking about your book, can you just tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I'm a mental health counselor. I've been doing this for about 12 years. And prior to that, social work. So I've always been involved in the social sector field. I never imagined that I would be an author. To be honest with you, my children are my inspiration and they encouraged me to write. And so fast forward in 2019, I published my first picture book about the history of Haiti. And then in the mix of, this COVID-19 crisis, I just felt led to write another picture book because of all the issues that my clients were bringing up, families with children, what I observed in my own sons and kids in the community. And so I came out with another book to support families, caregivers, and teachers. And then lastly, um, as school approached, I knew that the whole social distancing and the online learning was going to be tough, not just for me, but for everyone. And so I did create a quick guide for educators because I see that many of my teacher friends were wondering how do we transition these kids based on what they saw throughout, the year. So yeah, that's pretty much how I came to where I'm at right now. And I like I mentioned, I have two boys. I'm a wife of 9 years, and yeah, live
Yes.
in Philadelphia.
That is awesome. You say your kids kind of inspired you to not necessarily transition because you're still doing social work and you're still doing counseling,
Right.
but also venture into life as an author as well.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely,
So
for
what
sure.
inspired that first book?
Yes, and so my oldest son, who's 6, he started asking questions about his identity. And
Mm,
my family, they're from Haiti, and my husband's side, they're from the Philippines. And so I wanted to look for a book to help him understand where he's from. And I had a really hard time for, especially for age 6, to find something that talks about the history. I found things about the culture, the food, the music, but when it came to the history, the closest thing I could find was a chapter book. So my husband said, "Why don't you just write one?" And I was like,
mm.
"Who got time for all this?" And then I was just thinking, like, maybe I'll do one for the house. You know how you wear your house
Right.
t-shirt? You like
Absolutely.
nobody's gonna see it, you know. Just for them. But you know what, Kanika, I started putting so much into it, doing a lot of research. And, with all that work, I said, you know what, this is something that needs to be shared.
Right.
And so, in the process of doing that, I wanted to be able to get this book distributed to major bookstores. And that is where, in that process, I created Copscrete Publishing so that we have the freedom to reach as many people as we can. But this book, it's called Fridays with Miss Melange Haiti. And it's going to be a series. This is part one, as you can see here.
Okay.
And Danko Era is the illustrator. He did a wonderful job with the illustrations. And I love that, you know, um, he's actually lives in Latin America, but with
Hmm.
technology, you can work with anybody,
Absolutely.
anywhere. Um, and he did like I said, excellent job. So this story is kind of like if you imagine the Magic School Bus, but an urban style Magic School Bus.
Yes.
And all the books created by Cops Creek Publishing promote critical thinking skills and emotional development. Because as a counselor, that was really important, to have that aspect in these stories. And, at the end of the stories, I do have reflection questions
Mhm.
for teachers and parents to really try to get, and a resource list, a glossary, so that they can do further research if they want. Um,
Absolutely. Which is so amazing because, parents are always looking for those resources and really thinking about, and particularly now as everyone's kind of thinking about like their own identity, where they come from, who they are, kids are asking those questions and parents are really diving into those more complex topics more now than probably they ever have.
yes.
So thinking about like this second book, Mama Can I Sleep with You Tonight, and is dealing with helping children cope with COVID-19. What inspired that?
Yeah. So as I mentioned, my oldest son inspired my first book. My youngest son, who's 4,
Mm.
actually inspired this latest book. And I kid you not, on April 5th, he woke me up at 3 a.m. to share his big thoughts and big feelings surrounding COVID. He's always been a night processor. And so,
Okay.
because counseling is my day job, it's like, well, I have to serve my children as well. So I'm and of course, after he's done sharing, he falls right to sleep.
Wow.
And I'm like wide awake. And you know what I do? I do what I always tell my clients not to do. I pick up my phone and I start writing. I mean, I
Mm.
was, Kanika, flooded with ideas. What I
Okay.
observed in my children, in the community, amongst my clients. And I kid you not, I saw the similarity of the stages of grief.
Hmm.
Okay. And when you look at the grief cycle, there are 5 stages of grief. Okay. And there are denial, anger, sadness, bargaining, and acceptance.
Mm.
And I always like to add additional stage of transformation
Hmm.
because it's not just to accept what's going on, but to that extra step of how can we transform from all of this. And so in the book, it starts off with a story of a mother comforting her son the best way she knows how. And as you can see here, Danko Era also did the illustrations here. And, this book is very important in a way that it really gets down to the details about feelings. When I'm nervous, Mom, I feel butterflies in my feelings. Because a lot of times children can't articulate, but they can say, yes, that is how I feel too.
Mhm.
And then I talk about how with small children, this time can be very challenging for them because, when you think of children 3 to 5, you're an educator, they're learning facial cues. When
Exactly.
I see you smile, you're excited. When I see you angry, I know to back off a little bit.
Right.
And now you have these children who cannot see these cues. And can you imagine how challenging that can be for small children? And not only for small children, but children who may have, developmental disabilities as well.
Right.
And so being sensitive to that. So this book is not just about the impact of COVID-19, but how do we deal with change? And I kid you not. So I wrote the draft that night. And at 6 a.m., I said to my husband, you have to listen to this. I wrote a draft last night. He was like, what in the world? Okay. And so I read this, the story to him, and his mouth just dropped, Kanika.
Mhm.
Um, he said, you know what? He said, I kid you not. I remember being one day at work where I felt all those feelings. It hit me like a ton of bricks. And so this book is not just for children because every great children's book is really for adults too, right? And so this is going to allow us to tap into those feelings. And at the end of the story, I do provide resources for parents to look up, free resources. And so this book is actually one of our best sellers because it's timely, but not only is it timely, it taps into the emotions that we keep buried in.
And this is a difficult time for our kids, particularly in the spring when they were trying to understand what was happening, and none of us knew how long it would last, or what to tell our kids, because we
Right.
didn't know. So we it's definitely important to continue to have these type of resources for kids, both as now that they're back in schools in some places for educators, but also for parents.
Absolutely, absolutely. And actually, I'm actually doing a Kickstarter. This is our last week. So for folks who would like to order a copy, I am selling a digital copy, paperback, and a hardback copy, not only in English, but in Spanish and French. And all the copies will be autographed. And so if you want to check that out, I encourage you guys to visit Copscrete Publishing. We're on Instagram, Facebook, or you can go to our website at copscretepublishing.com.
And we'll make sure we drop the information in the link
Thank
in the chat as
you.
well. Absolutely. We all have to work together to support each other at this time.
Yes, absolutely, absolutely.
So,
I
as a
cannot agree with
counselor,
you.
what are some of maybe some of the biggest challenges that you see facing kids right now?
I would say one of the biggest challenges is really, especially for younger children, a lot of them are doing the virtual learning, and they're learning a whole new way to not only adapt to other people, right? But to learn, where you may have someone who's in kindergarten, first grade, right now, they're not really so much focus is placed on writing, but it's placed on, do you know how to use the mouse? And
Right.
click, you know what I'm saying? I'm like,
Right.
this is interesting. And I would say too that for a lot of adults, um, the challenge is to find that balance because when we're stretched out, it does affect the children,
Right.
right? And so that has been, a concern. And I would also say making sure to find resources for children because I think that the social economic gap has been shown through technology and access. And then you may have a parent who has to work, who's a single parent full time, and their child may not be present. How are you
Right.
going to reach out to that family? And
Right.
so there are tons of things that are coming up. And, I think it's important for us to be sensitive, to these issues.
That's definitely so important. As I'm working with teachers, that is definitely something that I try to reinforce.
Mhm.
The learning piece is going to be there. We can get them, to catch up, but are they okay? Like the social
Mm,
emotional piece is the piece that we want to make sure that we're really honing
yeah,
in on.
I cannot agree with you more. And it's funny you say that because this is the reason why I wrote the guide, How was your summer? Like I said, it's a short read. It's
Right.
pretty small. It's only like 80 pages. And actually, we have an audio book for those who are like, us on the go. And you might
Absolutely.
not have time to sit and read a book. Like you can listen to
Absolutely.
it while doing grocery shopping and whatnot. But this guide is actually comprehensive where it has 15-minute 15-minute therapeutic activities
Hmm.
for grades K through 12. Okay. And so what we talk about in this guide include like writing and drawing prompts to like inspire, the future generation so that they can become more sensitive to what's going on. So there's this one part that I really love that talks about um, what is it like to be an ally? And I talk about how being an ally is being a good Samaritan. When you see someone in need, you help them regardless of what they look like. These are exercises that we do. In there's therapeutic activities like how to breathe properly, take relaxation breaths to ground us when we're feeling stress, how to pay attention to our intuition. What is intuition? And how to listen to your intuition, right? I also talk about just the importance of being mindful. I actually, I'm not teaching yoga now, but I am certified to teach yoga. And so
Okay.
there is a link in the book, and anyone can check it out. You don't have to have access to this book. We, Copscrete Publishing, do have a YouTube channel, and we have a brief 8-minute chair yoga. So like you see how we're sitting in our chair
Absolutely.
right now. You're taking those deep breaths, you're stretching, and you're kind of like taking a moment to calm your central nervous system down.
Mm,
Because when we're dealing with anxiety, that's what happens. Our central nervous system gets stimulated. And so the reason why I put these activities on our YouTube page, along with, believe it or not, these 2 books are read out loud on our YouTube page as well, because I wanted to give everyone access to these resources. Because, like I mentioned, I know that there are families out there who are struggling financially, and the first thought is not going to be, oh, let's go ahead and grab those books, even though it sounds awesome.
right.
It's going to say, hey, we got to save up. And so that way, regardless, everyone can have access to the books. And if they want to purchase it, that's on them.
That's amazing.
Thank
So
you.
what advice would you give to parents right now?
Yeah. You know what? I would say to parents to be gracious, okay, towards yourself. You don't have to have it all together. I was talking to another mom friend who happens to be a professor at a university. So she's teaching online,
Right.
to university students, and she have her kids on online. And she said, "Oh my goodness, my kitchen's a mess." And I said, "Guess what? My kitchen is a mess too, girl." And and I'm a counselor. Okay, it's okay. And I'm always the first to say, Kanika, as a counselor, I get counseling. Okay, there's no shame in my game, because you know what? We need to promote mental health.
Absolutely.
I always say, it's interesting how we, get a physical every year, get our teeth cleaned twice a month, get our cars tuned every so often. But when it comes to our mental health, we wait till we're in a crisis.
Right.
Why not take care of yourself as a maintenance plan? That self-care. So I'm a strong proponent of mental health. And I'm always telling people, you need to go and make sure that you are checking your mental health, that you're talking to someone. If you can't afford it, find a friend, find, a mentor, find someone, a community. And I think that for parents, right at this moment, it's not just self-care, it's radical self-care. Okay.
Right.
Because these are radical times.
Radical times.
Okay. Radical self-care. And so, Girl Trek is an organization that does a great job at talking about radical self-care.
Yes.
Google them if you would like to check them out. They talk about having walks every day. So exercise is key, not just to get in shape, again, to calm the central nervous system down. And I would say, ask for help when you need it. Don't, wait till you're just, and we don't have to do it all. We don't have
Right.
to do it all. And so I have, I'm blessed to have sisters in New York who every now and then they'll come down and, watch the kids for like a weekend while my husband and I escaped to their condo in Brooklyn. So it's like, woohoo, so you need to connect with people that you trust. I know you can't do that with everyone, but if you find don't be afraid to say, well, I don't want to bother them. No, ask for help.
It's
Yeah.
so important.
Mm-hmm.
It's so important. Oh, Jenny, what does really, as we're thinking about like everyone kind of getting into that place where we know who we are, we're supporting our kids, what does diverse representation in children's books mean to you?
Oh my goodness. It means the world to me because growing up, we really didn't have it like that. You know, when you found one, it was like, you better hold on tight because you don't know when the next book's coming.
And you had to tell everybody about it because
Okay. So, I mean, it means the world to me. It means that when my sons go to a bookstore, they can say, wow, that's me. You know, that's me right there. That looks like me. And it really means that children are seen, you know, Black and brown children are seen, children of color. Um, and what that does, to be honest with you, it really helps them to develop a positive self-value, that they're important and that they matter because someone thought, you know, I would love to have them in this book, that you are beautiful and wonderfully made. And so that's what it means.
mm, yes, yes. And I know you spoke earlier about creating Copscrete Publishing. And what was the inspiration or what inspired you to start that?
Yeah, you know, I mean, if I can keep it 100, I knew that my books were gonna be a little bit on the spicy side, meaning just kidding.
Mm,
But seriously, like maybe controversial to some. I
right.
talk about hard topics in an age appropriate way. Like for my first book, you know, the series we're going to talk about this book is geared towards 8 to 12. We're going to talk about colorism. We're going to talk about
Mm,
social economic status. If somebody has more, does that mean they are more?
mm,
You know what I'm saying? And I talk about things that you may not find. I even have parents who read this book and say, wow, I never knew that. For instance, Haiti was the first constitution that recognized that everyone is created equal. It was, you know, and it's the first constitution. And Haiti had the audacity to say, if any African traveled to the shores of Haiti, they would be free. That
mm.
was in 1802. So,
Wow.
you know what was happening around that time. So
Absolutely.
it was like, say, what?
Yeah.
What you said? And so this is what I talk about,
Okay.
and sometimes, you have people out there who, and I say, different strokes for different folks,
Right.
but who may say, well, I want to protect my child's innocence. I don't want to talk about hard topics because I don't want them to grow up too fast or to view the world in a negative light. But my argument is always that, well, when you are honest with your children in an age appropriate way, of course, and you give it to them straight, what it does, it creates a bond, a trust.
Right.
Wow, I can trust you. What you're saying about the world is true. And I believe the opposite. What that does is when children find out that they've been bamboozled, it's like, okay, what else don't I know? So it does the opposite. It takes away
Absolutely.
their innocence, I believe,
Absolutely.
and trust.
And
And
parents are
so,
always trying to find that balance, just
yes, it
trying to
is a
figure out
balance.
what is enough and then what is too much,
Yeah, it is a balance.
particularly with little ones.
Yes, and you have to also know your child too. I always say if they're asking, they're ready to know something. You
Right.
know, they're ready.
And we don't realize how much they see and perceive that
Listen,
we don't even realize that they're processing internally, it may not even articulate to us.
yeah, no, you're telling the truth right there. Facts.
All right, so Jenny, are there any must-have children's books that you and your boys have like grown to love that you think that everybody should have on those bookshelves?
Yes, yes, yes. I gotta shout out my author friends, you know what I'm saying? We have some of
Absolutely.
their books too. One of them is What Can I Be? STEM
Yes.
Careers from A to Z. That's by Tiffany Teachy. There's another one called It's in You by Sharifa Anuz. Then I'm thinking about another great one for bedtime, The Rumble Hunters. Oh, we love that. And
Hmm.
that's by my friend Courtney Dunlap. And another great book for sleep is called Sleep Tiny Dreamer by Shanita Allen. And
Yes,
there's so
shout
many
out to
others, but
friends.
these are the ones that are coming to me.
Absolutely. Shout out those friends, support them.
Yeah.
All right. And are you currently reading anything good?
Yeah, the last thing that I remember reading was the book by Kendi, How to Become an Anti-Racist. And I
Mm-hmm.
read that like back in March. But to be honest with you, I haven't been really reading a lot of books, but I just been in my Bible, to be honest, because for me that grounds me, and that's how take care of myself spiritually. And so
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us today.
oh, thank
And
you for
before we
having
go,
me.
just let people know how they can get in touch with you and how they can definitely support and grab a copy of Mama Can I Sleep with You Tonight?
Yeah, so you can check me out at cobscretepublishing.com. We're on Instagram, Facebook, same name, Copscrete Publishing. And we also have gear. As you can see, I'm rocking one made in Philly.
Yes.
I have another one, Black Woman Business. So, we
Okay.
try to encourage each other. So definitely check out the website and support. And when you do purchase our gear, it does support a family in Philadelphia.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing.
Thank you.
And we'll definitely make sure that we add your contact information, all of those things into the link so people can find you on social media as well and on your website.
Thank
And
you.
again, thank you so much for joining us today. Your book is so important in this time, just helping people really deal with and help their children cope with, their emotions and what's going on right now.
Oh, thank you, Kenny. And thank you for what you do. Keep it up, sister.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.